there's a lot of knowledge and a lot of wisdom there, no doubt. And obviously, you've seen that firsthand, and you've had a lot of exposure to that. And you mentioned while you were talking the fact that different departments, different government departments have different sort of cultures, different way of thinking. And you said DFE has got a certain way. You've got your Treasury; they've got their own way, and you've got the Bayes initiative, and then you've got also DWP as well, which straddles the employability area. So if you to break that down again in terms of what are those sort of responsibilities? Where does it overlap, and how do they sort of cooperate and so forth? So a little bit of possibly shared sort of knowledge and experience.
I don't think there's enough cooperation. I don't think there's enough transparency coming out of Treasury around the levy and how it's raised and who it's raised from, or in fact how it's spent. And I think we could do with some more transparency in terms of the Treasury. I think the DFE has got too big a brief. I don't think they can give enough expertise to what is now needed to shift the gear in terms of skills and apprenticeship policy. I think skills and apprenticeships are two sides of the same coin. I think they're so preoccupied with lots of issues around sort of school standards. I think it'll be interesting to see whether or not there are moves towards making a more clearly defined tertiary sector as opposed to that distinctive college sector versus HE, because actually that does bifurcate the conversation, the narrative in terms of who should have priority around funding. I think the DWP, I spoke to a former colleague who now works for DWP, and she just said people forget, other departments forget that actually DWP have an awful lot of investment in skills, maybe at the lower level in terms of those furthest away from the labour market around reskilling or upskilling. But I don't think actually that's necessarily a department that certainly UVAC or any of our close stakeholders necessarily talk to too often. I think we need to go back to a focus around business and business development. And I think actually perhaps the policy needs to go back to what I would describe as the business department, where we can look at innovation around skills. If you think that we've got to do far more around greening the economy, greening the curriculum. We've seen the advent of technology and some of that discussion playing out now in terms of style and method of delivery, but how that impacts on teacher effectiveness and how that impacts on practitioner practice. So I think, we need a little bit of a sort of a rethink. There's been always a bit of a disconnect between the policy around HE and apprenticeships and skills. I don't think there's enough expertise within the HE policy team, within the Department for Education, around what's really happening in universities. If you think that, we've got probably around 30 universities that have got very sizable apprenticeship programs. We've got a middle third, certainly of our membership, with sort of, anywhere between sort of, 100 and 1,000 apprentices. And then we've got a long tail of providers that perhaps have small numbers of apprentices on programme and perhaps want to expand and grow, but that impacts on quality. So I think actually we need to have better conversations around actually what is the purpose of our higher education sector. And I know there's some discussion around actually getting that recognition for the role of universities in delivering on those dual objectives of productivity and social mobility. But we need to recognise that sometimes even our own HE regulator forgets that lifelong learning has to be part and parcel of the things that they look to, that actually apprenticeships are a growing aspect of the university offer, and the HE offer has changed. So I think we've got an awful lot of debate yet to have around the role of universities alongside other types of providers, because there's a role for every type of provider, including employer providers.
Canny Conversation Podcast Series 5 by Safaraz Ali.